Welcome to another Man to Man, and this week we have Josh Stuart, and I think it's become kind of a joke that everybody on here I've known over 20 years, but I've known him for 20 years, and so Josh is an awesome guy. He is Ogden Made. He's the founder and the owner of Ogden Made with his wife. So when Josh was 17, he worked for us, mostly for Maria, at Ivy Lane, a reception center we had, and you were there washing dishes.
Yep.
Fun stuff. And so we've known him for that long, and now he's a married father of 3. Give us a bio on yourself.
Yeah.
And where you're from, how you ended up here.
Well, I am from Ogden, lived here for my whole life. A couple stints that I've lived outside of Ogden, but nothing for very long, and I've always come back. And my grandparents, both sets of grandparents are from Ogden, and we're like 3rd generation Ogden High, hopefully going to be 4th generation. And so we've been here for a long time. But in my adult life, been married for almost 10 years now, got 3 kids, and really have embraced. We've moved 3 times, and I don't think we've moved more than a mile from any one house that we purchased. And we've just really loved what we've been able to establish and what the community has also given back to us. And so it's just been a fun 10 years essentially. It's been during this married life of mine.
Yeah. Well, and so Ogden Made.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and how it got started. And
yeah, so Ogden Made, it's been around a little over 10 years now. And in the early years, I worked for a different company that the company itself actually started Ogden Made, and I was a big part of those early years of what they were doing with Ogden Made, and they were making custom hand-cut, sewn bags. And that's where like Ogden Made stemmed from, was the hand-cut process of making a bag downtown. Ogden Made bags. And when I came along, we were kind of part of the bags, but really my job is to introduce the brand in a different way to the city, to the community. And it was during the holiday season of 16. One of those early years, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And it went really well. It caught a little bit of fire, and it was really exciting. A lot of people came. We put up a kiosk in the booth in the mall. Had a fantastic turnout. What happened the very next month was the company was doing really poor, and nobody knew it.
Yeah.
And like 70% of us got let go in one day. Well, the CEO got let go like a week earlier, and so we knew something crazy was happening. Yeah, like most everybody. And so me and 3 friends ended up purchasing Ogden Made from the company, and that's where like the journey really started. Me and 3 friends, we worked pretty good together. It was fine. We're all a little bit different, and so the growth never really happened with the company itself. Yeah. And one friend said, "Hey, I'm out," and so we went golfing at Mount Ogden.
Yep.
And within 9 holes, we all agreed that Ogden Made should be mine. And so on that day, we made a deal, and I bought my friends out, and that's where like my Ogden Made journey for myself really started. Yeah. And in those early years, it was just fun, and it was just this really cool idea. I felt Ogden Made, and I felt like what we were doing could be a cool idea. And I did that for like a year and a half, and it was just like this platform I had to learn and grow with this business life that I was interested in.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was going to become my life.
Yeah.
And things really changed when we had a 1-year-old daughter and our son was born. And he came pretty early, and through the pregnancy was when things really kind of got difficult. At about 10 or 11 weeks, we knew my wife was pregnant. So we just went for a routine scan, and I remember the OBGYN was doing the ultrasound, and usually you're there and she's smiling and she's telling you all the good things, and like in an instant, everything on her face showed that something was wrong. And she told us what she thought was wrong. She encouraged us to go get a genetic blood test, essentially. And we
Yeah.
found out shortly after that we had a kid who was essentially drowning in a fluid in all of his major organs. He had trisomy 21, Down syndrome, and that was like, I think, at about the 13-week mark. And from that point, they just pretty much told us he's going to not make it at sometime between now and likely like 25, 26 weeks in utero. And so
Yeah.
we kind of lived in this situation of, it was difficult because we were just waiting for this little baby inside my wife's belly to die.
Yeah.
And they had us come back often. I mean, we were there, I think, like every week or every other week, just checking on him, seeing how things were going. And after a few weeks, they said, we see a slight improvement, and your kid there's improvement. We're like,
Wow.
well, I guess that's good. A week or two later, there's a little bit more improvement, and the fluid that was essentially suffocating him in all of his major organs was slowly diminishing, and it was disappearing. And I remember the specialty doctor, he said that he personally had never seen it happen.
Wow.
I mean, there's been cases, but him and his practice, like, he's never seen it. So things got really good until about week 30. It went from like, he's gonna make it, and we're gonna have a baby boy, to your kid no longer is doing good. You're gonna stay in the hospital until your baby's born. And we're at week 30, and I'm sitting there. You know, we have a 1-year-old at home.
Yeah.
I have work, and she has work, and we don't know what's going to happen, because she could potentially be in the hospital for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty overwhelming feeling when, I mean, I felt pretty young, a young father, and you have these new responsibilities and a family and kids. And next thing I know, like, my wife's going to be in the hospital for 2 months.
Yeah. That's a long time.
It didn't last that long.
Yeah.
Kid, after 2 days, the doctor was like, things have gotten worse really fast, and we need to take this kid out.
Okay. Yeah.
And said, we didn't get rushed into an emergency C-section, but she planned it, and we ended up at a C-section, and that in and of itself went horribly wrong as well. And that was the point where the C-section started to, like, anyway, they prematurely cut my wife where she felt everything.
Oh boy.
And so it went into an emergency situation where they kicked me out. It felt like my wife was not going to make it.
Yeah.
She was fine, but I felt was
pretty scary.
It was scary. And they kind of kicked me out into a room where there were 2 doctors, multiple nurses, and a whole staff waiting for my little dude who was about to be born. And they got him out. Oh, they had to intubate my wife, and that's why they kicked me out. And they got my little boy out. Okay. And I remember they brought him in there. This is where it comes. And he was almost 31 weeks, but he was longer, honestly, than I anticipated.
Yeah.
But he was tiny, dude. I mean, his legs were the size of my pinkies, and he had like this platinum blonde hair and like peach fuzz, and he was just like this tiny, skinny 2-pound, little over 2-pound kid. And there was just like this whole group of people ready and willing to handle this new life. And the hard part is like, in that moment, it was like, is my little kid gonna make it, because he's so young and so new?
Yeah.
And also, like, I had never been in a emergency situation at the hospital.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of felt like my wife wasn't
like,
gonna make it
is my
either.
wife gonna be okay too? Then you got these conflicting
And
thoughts.
so everything panned out okay, and my wife started to recover. Well, we had him in the afternoon. The very next morning, they said, your boy's not doing good. We have to rush him to primary children's. And I'm like, like, we just got him out, and like, things were okay. And so he got rushed down. They like put him in an ambulance right away. And I remember one of the NPs was talking to me, and she's like writing all this stuff down, and she's like, you have to go with somebody. Obviously my wife was in no state to go, but she's like, you have to have somebody else there, because they're going to tell you things that you will not hear or remember because of just where I was, right? Like, my kid's hopefully going to make it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I started driving down there, and I was alone. And I remember the person I got a hold of. And it was one of my best friends. I feel like I have two.
Yep.
He's one of them. And he worked down in Salt Lake. And, like, no questions asked, he's jumped in the car, started driving over. By the time I got to primaries, I was a little behind the ambulance. I don't know how or what. They did the test that they needed to, and next thing you know, it was a life flight nurse who took him in the ambulance, but they already had him on his way back, and there was a little bit of relief there. But what stood out was like I was in a low spot.
Yeah.
And having somebody so willing to jump when I needed someone to jump.
Yeah.
And I can kind of come back to him later, but like he's that one of those. He's one of those guys for me.
Yeah.
And it made for a very special experience. And I don't think he knows, but like it stood out to me so strongly that I have somebody in my life that will be there for me in any moment.
Yeah.
And it's lasted through, up until today. Talked to him this morning.
Yeah.
So kind of fast forward a little bit, we had a real struggle in the NICU at McKay. So we made it back to McKay. We were there for about 6.5 weeks, and they couldn't figure out an issue he had, and they didn't know. So about at the 6.5 week mark, we got shipped down to Primary Children's, where things started to progress. But our little guy, he had already experienced a surgery. He had a few different times where it was just like the saddest thing. This little dude who can't even move. There's a point where he was so swollen, like his neck disappeared.
Yeah.
It was just like,
man.
And this comes back to Ogden Maid, how we get there. But so primaries ended up being amazing. They figured out the problem. He had a colon disease, and they thought they were going to cut out half of it. They ended up cutting out 80% of his colon.
Oh, wow.
And so what's good is he no longer has the disease, but that has carried on with new challenges even up until today.
Mm-hmm.
But what is now a blessing is once we got him home out of the NICU after 93 days, the day after, I got a text from my boss, who showed up to work every day for her, even during the times I was in the NICU.
Yeah.
He texted me and he said, the short version is, he said, this isn't going to work out. Don't worry about coming back to work anymore. And it just kind of I feel like given a lot to him during this like crisis of my life, trying to like take care of my little family, my 1-year-old girl and my little kids in the NICU. And it threw me kind of in a hard place where you can't understand what you're supposed to do, because you're supposed to take care of your family with this. I got a special needs kid now who needs a lot of medical attention, not just I need to feed him and make sure he takes his naps. Like there was a lot that went along with our little dude when he came home from the NICU. He was on oxygen, and we felt like we were a traveling NICU with him, with an ostomy and different things, and it was a lot.
Yeah.
And then I just lost my job, and as a guy, you're like, it's part of your identity. I mean, as much as like you don't want it to be, but like how you provide and what you do
taking care
for your family and how you make money is a big part of who you are.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or you don't, it's just it's a big role for a man and a husband.
Especially, in that situation, we talked about it before. But that sucks. That's a horrible feeling. Right after you've been in this ordeal for every day, watching your wife and your son struggling, and then now all of a sudden you don't even have a job, right?
Yeah.
I can imagine what that would do to you.
Yeah, it put me down, and this is where Ogden Made really became a big part of me and who I was and what I wanted to do with it. Is I had it, and it was just like this fun side hustle, hobby almost, but it turned into, I have an opportunity to see if this is going to do it. And gratefully I had a wife who also worked, and so we had a little bit of a safety net, and it wasn't a complete do or die, because I think if that was the case, I don't think it would have ever had an opportunity. I never would have given it anything, because I couldn't have focused on it. Right. It's too risky, so to say. And so from that day, I kind of put all of my eggs in that basket and started figuring out more in depth of what I needed to do to make this work, to make money for my family. That evolved into like, oh, people are grasping onto this Ogden Made concept, really relating to like what Ogden has to offer. And I think that's where like myself even understanding what I had, what I was almost unintentionally building, really came together as like more of just a business, more of just a money-making opportunity. It was really a brand that promoted like this idea, this community of where people really felt included. And it was this inclusive idea of, you know, for me, like generations of what my family has done in Ogden and how they've all been involved. And
it's awesome. I mean, so for people who aren't from Ogden, right, which we're not, but I've lived here for like 23 years. So all my kids basically grew up here and went to the high school in the community. People, I don't think a lot of people understand it outside of Ogden, that there is that inclusive community feel. That's what we've loved about it, and why we could have moved, and we haven't. And we've moved 3 times or 4 times in the last 20 years, and it's all been within 4 miles. You know, the other time it was within a street. 3 times in one street, which is nuts. But that's the thing we felt here too. Is Ogden's awesome that way, and I don't think I remembered. I probably knew, but I didn't remember that it started out with the bags. But I always felt like, there's Josh, you know, and he used to work for us. He's awesome, and he is Ogden Made, because you've promoted that idea, which is not. It wasn't a pretend idea. It's a real thing, right? It's a tangible thing, I think, in Ogden, that you're Ogden Made, right? And people gravitate to it, especially from here, because they feel like, I was made by these, you know, hiking these trails and living in this town and all the stuff that goes with Ogden High School and the uniqueness that is there, right? So it's pretty awesome what you've accomplished. I'm you know, awesome. I always say, I know that guy. I know the Ogden Made guy. He's pretty cool.
It is. I mean, admittedly, like it is kind of fun being that guy. Sometimes it's really fun not being that guy and seeing Ogden Made product out there and realizing that like not just my family and my friends are buying it. Because in the early years, like I felt like I knew every single person who bought it. And it's like, I appreciate you supporting my life. And now I get stories from people in Moab, in airports, and honestly, I've had a story in families in Greece, and 2 people connected because they saw someone wearing Ogden Made, and they said, "Oh, you're from Ogden." And I can't tell you how many stories people have told me, and I'm sure there's lots more. But like, I have some people tell me I only wear Ogden Made when I travel, and I get people stopping me all the time. And cool. Like that's what I want to continue with the brand is the community aspect of the brand. And the special part about that is it's taught me a little bit about the community like you need to build for yourself. And I think, you know, coming here and the appreciation I have for even getting the invite, because I think what you guys are doing and what Gina's doing is very important, because when you have your community, and that can be your parents, it can be your brother, your sister, your friends, it depends on who you are, but when you have your community and you have a safe place to share who you are genuinely, I think that's what really can save and enhance people's lives. For sure. Like, and that's why I partially told the bit of my friend showing up for me is because he's one of them. Where I feel like I can go to and be authentically me without any judgment, criticism, where he he might still be a man and want to try to fix
Yeah.
the problem,
Yeah.
which most of us do.
Yeah, true.
But he's willing and open to allow me to be me, whether it's my successes, my struggles, my mundaneness of what sometimes happens in everyday life. I just know that like him and a few others, like they're there for me.
Yeah.
Because life gives you different challenges, and there's a few more that I've had that I feel like could have knocked me down, and there's I the only things that I can think of that like I didn't get knocked down is there's people in my community,
Yeah.
and you know I can't move on without like giving a lot of credit to my wife.
Yeah.
Because me personally, I've had a few low points that I would have been in a lot different spot if I didn't have great support from her to allow me to like just be me and find my spot, or my direction, or not a direction for a second, just to kind of feel for a little while.
Yeah, just let you be who you were.
Yeah, and so I found that like I feel like I've succeeded in a few things of my life because of the people I've surrounded myself, and that they've allowed me to be me in every moment of what I've experienced. Yeah. And gratefully, like I've had maybe more ups than downs, but like I've had some
you've had some downs. Yeah.
And that was like the early years of my marriage, and I mean we've had some in the last
recent
year, 6 months, year to 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And
well, all of that you said is a good lesson, because one is that you realize you're always going to have something that might be a tough situation or a struggle in your life, right? But you know, and the other part of that lesson is you talk about your friend. Like I've got a buddy that same guy for over 40 years for me, since I was like, we were 10, 11 years old. Yeah. And I talked to him yesterday as well, like, you know, that kind of a guy. But it's also good for us to think, hey, maybe I should be that for somebody else. You know, if you're reach out to somebody and be that, which is what you're talking about. All great messages. We're all going to have trouble. We're all going to have struggles. You know, and a place where you know, where you're talking about your wife, sometimes where you just need to be vulnerable, how you feel, you know, talk about, and not have anybody fix it. I know that's weird, because that's all we ever do. I get in trouble with my wife because you got to fix everything, but sometimes nothing can be fixed. Sometimes it just is what it is, and you just got to sit in it for a while and then make your way through it, which is a different way than I ever thought up until probably a couple years ago. I just thought you just rub some dirt on it, toughen up, move on, and it doesn't work. You know,
well, and I can relate to that. I mean, I also come from a place that great childhood. Yeah. But felt like sometimes the message was just toughen up and get past it, get through it. Yeah. And in some cases, like I kind of feel like that's the answer. Yeah. But those are maybe some of the smaller things. When you have big moments and big hardships and deep low points, it's going to take more than dirt.
And that's where the community you know, when you talk about community, but the community can be simply like that, one or two close people.
Yeah, it's your community.
A lot of different people, right?
Whatever you create, but I do think building your community takes a little bit of effort too. You got to find your people, and sometimes you fall into it. Like I told you, a couple of those people for me, we've been friends for 29 years. Yeah. Like we became friends in the second grade.
Yeah, that's a long time.
And I'm grateful for those two men in my life, because we've been so close for so long. And then different people come. Like my wife wasn't there 25 years ago, but we've been together, married almost 10 years, been around each other for a long time. And it's slowly building your community where you have people that you can lean on when you need. And also, you know, it's also important to get yourself to your point, to get to a point where you can help others too.
Yeah. But and that it doesn't mean you gotta, I don't know, I guess when I said, I'm just saying, sometimes if you look over there and go, hey, that guy might need shoot a text to him or something, you'd be surprised that might be all that somebody needs to step out of their comfort zone and open up a little bit and help them out, so that because there's a lot of people, I think, they're men and women, but I think men especially, because we're, you talked about, I've talked about it before on these, a lot of our identity is tied to how we provide and what we do, or protect and, your family. And then when something happens and you feel like you're not doing it, like you lose a job, or that can really, knock people down, or you lose people in your life, right? It makes you start to go, wait, what is all this about? I mean, I thought I can't even do the things that I feel like was put here to do. What value do I have? But everybody's got a huge value. So
yeah, they do. And I relate to those every year. Q1 of every year is very difficult because, the providing part financially really dips.
Yeah.
And you think, you question yourself quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's like, is this what I should be doing?
Yeah.
But kind of going back a little while ago, I don't really commute or drive very far anymore. But every once in a while, if I'm in the car alone, sometimes I just turn everything off, and oftentimes I'll have a name pop into my head, and I try to honestly just give them a call.
Yeah.
And it's not even more than anything to just say, hello, what's up? And how you doing?
Yeah.
And I've gotten some replies, and nothing like, historic has happened other than like, you know what, thank you. I appreciate you calling and checking in on me.
Sure.
Because I think there's a lot of people that long for those simple things, that they just want to feel like they're a part of other people as well, that they're on somebody's mind, that they
belong or something,
that they belong
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's definitely important for me, for men, for kind of everybody, women.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. I'm glad you came. Like we said, we've known you since you were a teenager.
Yeah.
And I've said it before. I always say, hey, I know that guy, the Ogden Maid guy. He's awesome. Yeah. And the people are like, makes me feel cool, because you're like, oh, you know him? I'm like, oh yeah, he used to wash dishes for us. But anyway, you said some awesome stuff. Your story with you, your family, your wife is amazing. We appreciate you. A lot of the things you said are a lot of what we talk about, which is the ability for people to maybe be vulnerable, or also to allow yourself to let someone reach out as well. So appreciate you coming and doing this with us, and showing us that vulnerability truly is a strength in everybody's life. And appreciate it, and thanks, and we love you, and go Ogden Maid.
Go Ogden Maid. Well,
right?
Yeah. Well, thank you for.
Okay, and then wash your hand after.
Yeah, I'll go straight. I'll just hold it out here.